Hi guys, this is my James Bond DVD collection part 2. So firstly we've got The Man with the Golden Gun. Now this film was released in 1974. Stars Roger Moore in his second role as James Bond, along with Christopher Lee as the villain Francisco Scaramanga. Um, it's a good film. I don't think as good as his first film, the Live and Let Die, but it's still an okay film. Again, I think a lot of people view it as his weakest film of his seven, which I do kind of agree with. But in my opinion, I think it's a cult classic. Really, I really did enjoy. So yeah, this was directed by Guy Hamilton in his fourth and final role as director, and that was his fourth and final one. Yeah, so it's a good film. I'll probably give it probably about 7 out of 10. Um, I'd say only real collectors should really buy that really. And then next we've got Spy Who Loved Me. This was released in 1977. It's directed by Lewis Gilbert in his second role as director. This one is probably, I would say, probably my second favourite Roger Moore James Bond film. Probably give it probably about an 8 out of 10. I think it's better than the Man with the Golden Gun, but I don't think it's as good as Moonraker, for instance. It's still got some obviously classic scenes. You've got the underwater car, as you can see, and you've got a lot of cool gadgets in it and things like that, as usual with the James Bond films. But it's still a really good film though. And obviously you've got Jaws. I don't know if you can quite see him; it's just a little silhouette there. But you got Jaws, which is obviously his classic villain. So it's got a lot of classic James Bond things in it. But and it's got some good villains. But it's still not my favourite. But it's still a real solid film. Real solid film. I really enjoyed all the Roger Moore James Bond films, and this one's no different really. And this one was Moonraker, released in 1979. It's got Jaws in again from the previous film. This is Roger Moore's obviously his third film. His fourth film as James Bond. This one is my favourite, as we've already mentioned, Roger Moore James Bond film. Because obviously, one it's set in space. Two, it's got some really good characters in, and I just really like the locations in it and everything, and the story as well. Now, I'd probably give this one probably about an 8.5 out of 10. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't really see this as their favourite one. And everybody's got their own opinion, but again, it's a really good film. Yeah. Then next you've got For Your Eyes Only, which is Roger Moore's fifth James Bond film. Obviously, I've got the 2-disc Ultimate Edition set as well. This one is probably I'd say probably my third favourite film of his, after Moonraker and Spy Who Loved Me. It's got a good villain in Julian Glover in the film. It's got again a good plot, like most James Bond films have. And I love the locations and some of the stunt work in it's really good as well. And I'd probably give this one probably a 7.5 out of 10, roughly. This one was directed by John Glenn in his first 5 James Bond films. The director who has directed the most. He's directed the most James Bond films. Obviously, Moonraker was directed by Lewis Gilbert, so in his third and final one. But yeah, John Glenn's he's a good director as well. That's why he had that longevity in the Bond films. Directed all 5 films in the 1980s. And it's an overall really good James Bond film. I think a lot of people do like this film as well. Obviously the Lotus comes back again, not underwater this time, but it's got like a self-destruct mechanism. So it's got some also some good scenes in as well. Some very memorable scenes, a memorable theme song sung by Sheena Easton. Yeah, so again, a really good classic James Bond film. And then next we've got Octopussy. This one was released in 1983. Yeah, because there's Fioro's only was 1981. This one's I don't think really one of Roger Moore's best James Bond films. I think it's one of his more weaker ones. It's more humorous, certainly, but it's okay. But I think Roger Moore was kind of waning a bit by this film, his sixth film in the role. I think he was, I think his popularity was probably waning slightly. I mean, he'd had a good box office, good box office returns and things like that. But I mean, the acting performances are good, especially by Louis Jordan as Kamal Khan, and obviously you got Maud Adams as well as Octopussy herself, in her second role, following on from The Man with the Golden Gun, where she played Andrea Anders as well. This one's directed by again John Glenn, who I mentioned before. It's like I said before, it's a good film. Probably give it about 6.5 out of 10. But I just think Roger Moore was kind of, I think he was kind of losing his edge as 007 by then, because obviously his age being one factor. I mean, he was 56 when this film came out, so a lot older than all the other James Bonds before, the other two James Bonds before him. But it's still it's still got some good gadgets in and things like that. It's still a classic James Bond film, but it's just not as good as his previous efforts. And then next we've got A View to a Kill. This one was Roger Moore's seventh and final role as James Bond, released in 1985, directed by John Glenn again, and his third role as director. This one I think was slightly better than Octopussy, but again, one of Roger Moore's weaker films. A lot of people didn't really rate this one as a really good Bond film, which I do agree with in certain aspects, but in other aspects I think it's a really good James Bond film as well. You've got Christopher Walken as the main villain, Max Zorin. He puts in a really good role in the film. You've got obviously Mayday, played by Grace Jones as well, who puts in a good performance as well. And obviously you got it set in France, as you can see, got the Eiffel Tower. Well, that's just one location, but it is a really good film. But again, it's not one of my favourite Bond films. Might be to certain people, but I do see it as one of his weaker films, to be honest. But it is a I suppose an okay like going out film for Roger Moore in his role as James Bond. But I'd probably give it about a 7, maybe about a 7 out of 10. It's just again a classic one, but just not just a bit more. I think, as I said before, Roger Moore was 58 when this came out, so it was his age was going against him, and his popularity was waning somewhat. So, but again, an okay film to go out on. Yeah, and then you've got Living Daylights. This is obviously the Ultimate Edition again, 2-disc. This one was the first one to star Timothy Dalton, his first out of 2 roles as James Bond. This was released in 1987, directed by John Glenn again in his fourth role as director. This film was, I think, an improvement over A View to a Kill, and I think Timothy Dalton's strongest film of his two, and probably my favourite one out of his two. He puts in a really good debut performance as James Bond. I think he's got what Ian Fleming was looking for, really. What he wrote about in it, the way he envisaged the character in his books. He envisaged James Bond as having a more darker personality, and somewhat probably a bit more colder and a bit more like stone-hearted and things like that. Not like as kind of as humorous and as martini drinking as you saw in the films. He expected him to be like a bit more, like I said, a bit more darker in tone and things like that. And Timothy Dalton portrays that, I think, the most out of all of his previous incarnations of Bond. He's the first one to actually nail it, really. That kind of persona. I don't think he's the best James Bond, but he does nail that persona, and I think that's a good thing. This one I'll probably give about an 8 out of 10. Like I said, an improvement over Review to a Kill, but I don't think it's as good as some more of the recent James Bond films, and some of Sean Connery's films were slightly better as well. But it's still a really solid film, and I would recommend watching that one entirely. Yeah. Then you got lastly for this part is License to Kill. This one was Timothy Dalton's second and final film, released in 1989, directed by John Glenn, his fifth and final role as director. This one was not as strong as The Living Daylights, but not bad either. You've got Robert Davi, who plays the main villain, Francis Sanchez. He puts in a strong performance, a really good performance. And again, Timothy Dalton keeps that dark. This one's even more darker than The Living Daylights, hence the 15 age rating as well. It's more violent. You got a lot more violence in it. It's a lot more darker in tone. You got drug use and everything. It's a lot more harder and heavier than most of the other James Bond films. First one to actually get a 15 rating as well. Whereas all the others were like PG. But it's still a decent film, and I think it's a good film for that Timothy Dalton kind of went out on. He was due to do a third film, I think, in 1991, but that never materialised. His contract negotiations fell through and things like that. And so, but I'd probably give it probably about a 6.5 out of 10. Again, like I said before, not as strong as The Living Daylights, but not bad either. And I would recommend watching that, obviously, if you're a proper Bond fan. But I don't think you really need to start with this one. But again, it's a good film, well, an okay film, and I would watch it. So, yep, there you go, guys. That's my James Bond DVD collection part 2. I'll be back with part 3 very, very soon. And again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and bye.